Why am I critiquing a comedy routine from a comedian long dead like George Carlin? Well, the reason is because the logic and some would say humor in Carlin's Ten Commandments routine actually portrays very well the ideas and sentiments still carried by atheists today towards the ideas of God and religion and so on. And I think it is still a very valid critique to do. Now, I do believe that George Carlin is a very funny comedian in other places, and I do think he's also a very deep person. I think he understood a lot of things very well. But when it comes to this Ten Commandments routine, I'm not trying to pick on him specifically, but I do want to pick apart his reasoning, the jokes that he's making about religion and the ideas of God or the Bible, because I think that they are logically and morally bankrupt. And I think that this is a very good routine to critique because it actually does critique a lot of the philosophies and ideas of modern atheists. And before you say, well, it's a comedian, it's a joke, it's a show, if you look at the comments under the video, a lot of people say outright, George Carlin is not just a comedian, he's a really deep philosopher, he really pulls away the illusions. And it's very clear that people take this as doctrine and that he is some great philosopher in his approach, not just a funny comedian. So that's why I want to address this video. I think it breaks down a lot of points about atheist and logical reasoning within the atheist ideas and worldview. And so I'm going to be critiquing his Ten Commandments comedy routine.
Here's my problem. Why are there 10? You don't need 10. I think the list of commandments was deliberately and artificially inflated to get it up to 10. About 5,000 years ago, a bunch of religious and political hustlers got together to try to figure out how to control people, how to keep them in line. They knew people were basically stupid and would believe anything they were told, so they announced that God had given them some commandments. Up on a mountain, when no one was around, God had given them the 10 Commandments.
So his first point, even from a secular perspective, makes no sense at all. First of all, he's not arguing here whether or not the Ten Commandments are valid. What he is doing is arguing whether or not God exists, because if God exists, that's the reason for it. But even from a secular perspective, a bunch of people got together, made some rules to control people because they realized people would basically listen. Isn't that how any systems of laws are made? A bunch of people get together to make laws to keep people in line, as he says. Yeah, the people get together, they make laws, and they keep people in line. That's what a legal system is. So if you have a problem with it, then you have a problem with any secular legal system as well. Why have laws?
But let me ask you this. When they were sitting around making this shit up, why did they pick 10? Why 10? Why not 9 or 11? I'll tell you why. Because 10 sounds official. 10 sounds important. They knew if it was 11, people wouldn't take it seriously. Say, what, are you kidding me? The 11 commandments? Get the fuck out of here. But 10 sounds important. 10 is the basis for the decimal system. It's a decade. It's a psychologically satisfying number. The top 10, the 10 most wanted, the 10 best dressed. So having 10 commandments was really a marketing decision.
So his next argument, why 10? Why did they pick 10? Well, because it's an emotionally satisfying number. It's the basis for the decimal system, decades. People like the number 10. Well, I think he missed a very important point here. Why care about a decade? Why care about 10 years? Why is that an emotionally satisfying number? Okay, there are other systems of math that are not based on the base 10 decimal system, right? Other primitive nations used 12 systems based around the number 12, as recently pointed out in a video with Joe Rogan, Wesley Huff, explaining how other societies used 12 systems. Why is 10 so emotionally satisfying? Well, because we live in a time long after the 10 Commandments were given, and because of things like the 10 Commandments, it seems like an emotionally satisfying number. He's missing that point completely. That being said, if it was all about emotionally satisfying numbers, then why not mimic that with the apostles of Jesus? If we're going to lie about those, why don't we make 10 apostles? His argument falls apart very quickly with any logical reasoning at all.
I'm going to show you how you could reduce the number of commandments and come up with a list that's a little more workable and logical. We're going to start with the first three, and I'll use the Roman Catholic version because those are the ones I was taught as a little boy. I am the Lord thy God. Thou shalt not have strange gods before me. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Thou shalt keep holy the Sabbath. Right off the bat, the first three, pure bullshit. Sabbath day, Lord's name, strange gods. Spooky language. Spooky language. Designed to scare and control primitive people. In no way does superstitious nonsense like this apply to the lives of intelligent, civilized humans in the 21st century. You throw out the first three commandments, you're down to 7.
So he starts off by saying he could easily reduce the list of commandments, and he puts the first three in the same category. Thou shalt have no other gods, strange gods, and the Sabbath. Why does the Sabbath go with that? Those are two very different things. He says no logical person, this doesn't apply to anyone with reason in the 21st century. The idea of a Sabbath definitely applies. People take breaks from work. It's well established psychologically that taking regular breaks and having a divided work week and having a day off and rest can be psychologically beneficial, can improve productivity. So the idea of a Sabbath from a secular perspective is not so far-fetched. Why is that spooky language, as he calls it? And he just calls it spooky language. This is not spooky language. The idea that there's a God and you're not going to worship other gods is an idea throughout history in human culture, not just with the Bible. Oh, maybe his critique is of all culture saying there's a God. So again, he's purely just saying, I don't believe in God, you're stupid for believing in God. That's all he's getting at there. To say it's spooky language, well, he's saying that it's language used to control. Have you ever seen a modern legal document? I could easily make the claim that that's spooky language meant to control you. Wordy, unnecessary, all kinds of nonsense put in to confuse you. I could make the same claim about any modern legal document that I could make about the Ten Commandments as far as spooky language.
Next, honor thy father and mother. Obedience, respect for authority. Just another name for controlling people. The truth is, obedience and respect should not be automatic. They should be earned. They should be based on the parent's performance. Parents' performance. Right? Some parents deserve respect. Most of them don't. Period.
So now he bashes honor thy mother and father, and he says it's about control and obedience. Nowhere in that commandment does it say control and obedience. It says honor thy mother and father. There are all kinds of reasons why that is a very valid thing to have embedded in your society. It doesn't say listen to everything that they say. It doesn't say do everything that they tell you to do. It doesn't say respect them when they fail or mess up or do evil things. It says honor thy mother and father. For somebody with a Catholic upbringing, he doesn't seem to understand much about the Bible or what it's teaching. It doesn't, first of all, the word for respect or honor can be used interchangeably, so that's a whole nother debate to get into, but it never says anything about obedience or control. It doesn't say you have to do everything your parents tell you. So again, a completely false claim, no logical reasoning behind it. One could easily make the claim that a society that honors their elders is better off in most cases and that there is valid reason for that commandment. He has added in words that don't exist there, creating a straw man that he can then tear down.
Now, in the interest of logic, something religion is very uncomfortable with.
Now he says, in the interest of logic, something that religion is very uncomfortable with. Kind of interesting considering that he is using no logic at all in any of his arguments in this video.
We're going to jump around the list a little bit. Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness. Stealing and lying. Well, actually, these two both prohibit the same kind of behavior. Dishonesty, stealing, and lying. So you don't need two of them. Instead, you combine them and you call it thou shalt not be dishonest. And suddenly, you're down to 5.
So now this great secular expert on logic has decided that the list of 10 commandments is really stupid for having a separate commandment for stealing and another one for bearing false witness, because basically that's just about honesty, so you could just combine them into one. Okay, if that's the case, why does every modern legal system, basically everywhere in the civilized world, also have these things divided? There are laws against stealing and there are laws against lying. Now, lying is not always a crime. It can be a crime if you're perjuring yourself under oath in a court, or if you are defrauding people with your lies, or if you are defaming people. These can be crimes, and that's each one is a separate crime, and we divide them all up in modern legal systems. And then stealing is a completely different one. And not only that, stealing is then further divided into different crimes. Was it assault and battery when you committed an armed robbery? Did you sneak into a store and steal something by shoplifting? Did you, again, defraud somebody and take money by deceit? These are all different crimes. They are all divided, and lying and stealing are never put in the same category unless you're talking about something like fraud, which is a crossover. So from his secular religion is stupid perspective, to combine these is actually completely illogical. So in the interest of bashing the Ten Commandments as stupid, he's actually going to turn on his own logic on secular society, on any reasonable legal system. He's going to make himself look like an absolute fool so he can make a joke about the Ten Commandments.
And as long as we're combining, I have two others that belong together. Thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Once again, these two prohibit the same kind of behavior, in this case, marital infidelity. The difference is coveting takes place in the mind, and I don't think you should outlaw fantasizing about someone else's wife. Otherwise, what's a guy going to think about when he's waxing his carrot? But marital fidelity is a good idea, so we're going to keep the idea and call this one, thou shalt not be unfaithful. And suddenly, we're down to 4.
So now he's saying that you should combine no adultery with no coveting your neighbor's wife into one commandment because they're both about marital fidelity, and he thinks that's a good idea. A moment earlier, he says it's totally fine to covet your neighbor's wife, but in the interest of marital fidelity, which he obviously acknowledges is a good idea, let's shove them into the same command. Okay, so you've admitted that marital fidelity is a good thing. Why combine them? You yourself have said they are separate. You don't think there's anything wrong with thinking about somebody or coveting somebody, but you do think that there is blatantly an issue with adultery. So those are obviously two separate and valid things. They should equally be prohibited, but they are obviously not the same. Coveting and doing are obviously separate things as far as this command is concerned, and he would agree. He thinks it's really bad to commit adultery. It's kind of bad to covet your neighbor's wife. So he's admitted they are two separate things, but equally valid and relevant. Why put them in the same command then? They should be separated. You are not as bad for this one as that one in his own logic, but he's going to combine them because he wants to mock the list.
But when you think about it, honesty and fidelity are really part of the same overall value. So in truth, you could combine the two honesty commandments with the two fidelity commandments and give them simpler language, positive language instead of negative, and call the whole thing, thou shalt always be honest and faithful, and we're down to 3.
So now, continuing his line of complete lack of logic, he now wants to combine the fidelity in marriage ones with the stealing and lying honesty commandment that he's created and lump them together as thou shalt always be honest and faithful. Okay, well, it would be great if people were always like that, but the reason we have laws and we separate them are because people do different bad things than each other. There are a number of bad things we can do, so we separate them into different laws. So if you're going to be giving what is essentially a legal document to people to follow, you would want to specify those things separately. So as much as it would be nice to tell people, be honest and faithful with everyone, it's not a realistic command, first of all, and it also makes no sense from a legal perspective. He would not hold a secular law to that same standard. Can you imagine if the law in the United States or in Canada or in the UK or anywhere else in the civilized world were to say, hey citizens, here's the law, be honest and faithful all the time? What a disaster that would be. So why hold the Ten Commandments to that standard as a secular person when you would never hold any legal system to that standard? You would obviously divide them up into separate laws.
Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's goods. This one is just plain fucking stupid. Coveting your neighbor's goods is what keeps the economy going. Am I right? Your neighbor gets a vibrator that plays "O Come All Ye Faithful." You want to get one too. Coveting creates jobs. Leave it alone.
So now with coveting thy neighbor's goods. So he says, this is stupid. Coveting your neighbor's stuff is what makes the economy work. Your neighbor wants something, you want it, that's what makes markets and jobs. Well, maybe for you, George. I don't think that most people are completely driven to success by greed and envy, right? The idea that you might want nice things for yourself could drive an economy. It doesn't mean you're coveting your neighbor's. Coveting your neighbor's things would imply, one, I want specifically what he has, and furthermore, I want him to not have it. I want to take what's his. What coveting is I'm looking at my neighbor's stuff and going, I want his things. I don't want him to have them. I want to have them. That's coveting. And even if it was simply, I want everything that somebody else has, even if I don't want him to lose it, that's already beyond what we're talking about with the desire for nice things that could drive an economic market. The fact that people want nice things, great. So you work for those things. You don't need to covet people's things to want nice things. So covetousness is not what drives an economy. It's not what drives people to things. I think he forgets about most of human history, where most people were driven to success by a desire to survive, to eat food, to have shelter, and to be able to pay for things and to own things and to have stuff. Not because somebody else has them, but because you need them to survive. That can translate into a modern world where we have luxuries and we can afford things, but it doesn't mean that we only want them because somebody else has them. That's covetousness. That's not what drives economies. Maybe it's a projection here. Maybe he only wants things that other people have, or maybe he knows a lot of people like that. There are a lot of covetous people. In fact, there are probably a ton of covetous people. That doesn't make it a good thing, and it doesn't make it what drives economies.
Throw out coveting, and you're down to two now: the big honesty and fidelity commandment, and the one we haven't talked about yet, thou shalt not kill, murder, the fifth commandment. But when you think about it, religion has never really had a big problem with murder. Not really. More people have been killed in the name of God than for any other reason. All you have to do... Sure. All you have to do is look at Northern Ireland, the Middle East, Kashmir, the Inquisition, the Crusades, and the World Trade Center to see how seriously the religious folks take thou shalt not kill. The more devout they are, the more they see murder as being negotiable.
So now he gets to the commandment of thou shalt not murder. And he goes, well, when you think about it, more people have been killed by religions than anyone else than by anything else in human history. Look at all these different things and bad things that religious people do. The more devout they are, the more they kill, or the more they are okay with killing. Well, first of all, he went from talking about the biblical command of thou shalt not kill to talking about all religions. But even in that disgustingly straw man argument where he's lumped all religions together while critiquing the Ten Commandments, he's missing the point that, first of all, that's factually incorrect. If you just take Stalin alone, he's wrong. But if you add in every other secular, atheist-run regime, which could be argued Hitler's included in that as well, but even without Hitler, just Stalin, just Mao, and you throw in Pol Pot and the likes of them, religion doesn't even come close. That being said, not all religions are in the same category. So he's justifying why thou shalt not kill with Muslims, for example. He's talking about the World Trade Center. Why is Muslims killing people invalidating the Ten Commandments in the Bible? And even if he's correct that religious people have killed more people than any other group, that still doesn't make the commandment stupid. He's trying to invalidate an eternal universal law of thou shalt not kill by saying, well, you guys do it, so throw the law out. That's not how anything works. That's not how... If a bunch of people in an area are okay with killing, that doesn't invalidate the laws against killing in the area. So, one, the law should still be there of don't kill people, even if everyone's a hypocrite and does it. But on top of that, he's wrong. Religions have not killed as many people overall as atheist dictator regimes. And even if religious people do kill a lot of people, not all religions are Christianity or Judaism that use the Ten Commandments in the Bible. And even then, you're nowhere close. So, a completely logically bankrupt and morally bankrupt argument. You should still have the rule against killing, even if everyone's a hypocrite and does it. So the law is valid. The Ten Commandments, in that sense, having do not kill, makes sense. And then on top of that, he's wrong about religious people killing more people than atheists. It's just factually incorrect. Excuse me. And then on top of that, throwing all religions together as if the fact that Muslims might kill somebody should, or pagan Norse Vikings should kill people, should invalidate the do not kill in the Ten Commandments in the Bible. It's completely logically and morally bankrupt.
So, with all of this in mind, I leave you with my revised list of the 2 commandments. Thou shalt always be honest and faithful to the provider of thy nookie. And thou shalt try real hard not to kill anyone, unless, of course, they pray to a different invisible man from the one you pray to. 2 is all you need. Moses could have carried him down the hill in his fucking pocket. And if they had a list like that, I wouldn't mind those folks in Alabama putting it up on the courthouse wall. As long as they included one additional commandment, thou shalt keep thy religion to thyself. Thank you.
So his final point here is that he'd be okay with this revised list of his as long as they add a 3rd one that says, thou shalt always keep thy religion to thyself. He does not practice what he preaches there. He is a devout religious person, the religion of atheism. He started the video by saying religions created these rules to control and hurt people. Atheism is a religion. He is devout in his practices. He will preach his view to you on stage in public as if it is gospel truth, but you're not allowed to preach yours to him. It's completely hypocritical. In fact, a lot of atheists who are devout have priests and leadership figures that they acknowledge the rules and regulations and ideas and philosophies of, and they are devoutly committed to those priests and their ways. I'd argue that atheism is as much a religion as any religion before. Are there plenty of bad religious people? Sure. There are plenty of bad people everywhere. There are plenty of good people everywhere. Again, he is a complete hypocrite in this sense because he will preach to you from a public stage his viewpoint on God and the world and creation and reality and logic. He will preach it to you and then he will tell you, shut up, don't tell me yours, and then he'll tell you there should be a command where you don't preach your religion to others. Completely morally bankrupt and completely hypocritical. So again, the reason I wanted to make this video is because I wanted to demonstrate, first of all, how unfunny this routine is. For such a funny man, for such a great comedian, when he goes into this tirade against religion, this religious preaching that he's doing, it's harshly unfunny. And it also is completely morally bankrupt. Nothing that he said made sense even from a secular perspective. But these are talking points that a lot of atheists use and always have. And I think a critique like this is still needed today, even though it's an old video of a dead comedian. I think this is still needed because a lot of people take these points for granted. Religion has been responsible for the most deaths. It's just factually incorrect, unless you call atheism a religion, in which I would agree. So that's why I wanted to make the video. I hope that did accurately portray some of these ideas and give you some idea about these talking points of atheists and how logically inconsistent they are and how hypocritical they are. And I'll probably delve into this a little bit deeper in another video. Please like and subscribe and comment.